Hello and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile, and this is a show where I get to talk about sports. I get to talk about business and everything in between. Today, my special guest, I have Bryan Argott. He's the host of another podcast, which I'm excited to talk about, A Rocky Start. He's a student in sports broadcasting, and he is also a virtual personal trainer as well as an in-person personal trainer. Bryan, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
It is a good day to be alive, man. It is a very good day to be alive. But in my opinion, I think all of them are. So it doesn't get better
Right,
than
right.
this.
It's true.
Doesn't get better than this. So, Bryan, very excited to talk to you about your podcast, about getting into sports broadcasting after already kind of having a career in the virtual and I guess in person personal training space. And actually excited to talk about the Marines. I know you were involved with them for a little bit as well, which is pretty cool. But first, the question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast really
Of
sets the
course.
tone, in my opinion, is why do you love sports so much?
I mean, man, sports is, I think we all can relate to it no matter what background we come from. Everybody, when we grow up, we look at icons. That was for me. Sports was a big impact in my life as a kid on how I worked physically and mentally. I always looked for, sports like growing up in a little rough neighborhood. As far as not having a lot of money growing up, I was just was able to relate to sports, and that's where the love came from for me. I was a big Eagles. I'm a big Eagles fan, big
Oh,
Mets fan.
Mets and
You know,
Eagles? What the hell?
you're wearing a Mets t-shirt I see right there.
Yeah,
Uh,
but why are you an Eagles fan then?
Eagles fan because I was a big Donovan McNabb fan. I was a fan of players. I
Okay.
live here in Los Angeles. We did not have a football team. We have a baseball team, the Dodgers, but my brother is a Yankees fan, so I started watching baseball right in the 2000 Subway Series.
Mm.
And so, I was going against my older brother. That's what brothers do. We fight, and we definitely fought about that, and we've been fighting ever since.
Yeah, and
And
you really on the wrong end of that one, buddy. I'm a very big Mets fan, and I'll tell any Mets fan, don't be a Mets fan. It's not worth it. But I
yeah,
respect it.
well, Steve Cohen's coming in the deal, so hopefully
Yes.
that all changes.
Let's get it, man. I'm so excited. Uncle Steve's gonna give us all his money. 14 billion, baby. Let's go.
But yeah, man, it's I think we all can relate to sports out there. We all look for inspiration in life, and I mean, what better to get it from sports? It's the perfect Cinderella story. We all can. That's what, like, living here in America, it's like we have the opportunity to come from the smallest parts of the world or America, and make something out of nothing. That's what's great about it, and that's where I think sports and I relate the most.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, just it's an interesting mix of teams. I mean, Philly and New York, I don't get it, but it is what it is. I understand your fans of players, so I respect it. I'm sorry you're a Mets fan.
I'm
Really
not.
sorry you're an Eagles fan. Ugh, that one hurts me, but I'll disparage the Eagles later on in this conversation. Don't worry. I'm sure I'll
That's
throw a
right.
couple jabs in there. I mean, Carson Wentz is already hurt. I really don't even have to say too much, but it's I think it's interesting, how that really, you're connecting it to kind of that American dream almost, because you're right. The Cinderella stories. We as America, we root for the underdog, right? For whatever
Of course.
reason. Like in certain situations, we love greatness, and in certain situations, we hate greatness, right? Like the
Of course.
country hates Tom Brady, but most basketball fans love LeBron. So it's really interesting kind of where we create that divide and why I guess we do those things. But I don't
I
know.
think
I love it.
I think I love LeBron James. He's a
Me
fantastic
too.
player,
Love him.
always like that. But I think half the NBA before. I think now they fall in love with more LeBron during this time. I
Mhm.
think last like year of the Lakers, but I think it was the other way actually. I think equally people hated him just as much as they loved him because he has with the decision and all
Mhm.
his other moves that he's done. He kind of forces players out, and that's just the kind of world that he's kind of assembled himself in, going team to team.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how he pretty much created that trend, and it kind of
Mhm.
came back to bite him in the ass a couple times with those Warriors teams. So it's just kind of it's interesting. Yeah, I thought the decision was a little silly. Everyone always forgets he took all that money and donated to the Boys and Girls Club of like
Right.
Cleveland and New York and LA and Miami and Chicago. No one remembers that part of it, but hey, that's the media for you.
No, I think his heart's always in the right. He tries to be in the right place for the most part. I just think like with how he did the fan base, of
Hmm.
course they, gave him, and rightfully so. I mean, you leave a team like that, after being there for 9 years. I totally think he was in the right place to leave. At the time, he spent well over about 9 seasons, I think, there. at the first go around. And you want to win, and they never gave him the talent to win. So I would leave too. 9 years I think is enough time to accumulate some players. They gave him a lot of older players,
Hmm.
Shaquille O'Neal, Antoine Jameson, just a bunch of players. In their prime they were great, but during the time when they were LeBron, he washed up.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like what the Mets do. We get all these guys that were really good, like Robinson Cano or whatever. And I mean, he's doing great this year, but it's not like it's helping the team too much. So it is what it is
No,
there. But I think LeBron is an interesting topic of conversation. I love him. I always have. I wanted him to go to Miami. I was so happy when he won those first two. Obviously, then going back to Cleveland, winning that third one, I think is it cemented in as you said, with him going back. I think everyone's like, all right, LeBron, you're kind of cool again. So it's interesting how all that happened, but I'm
I,
for it.
I I think LeBron's the greatest player of all time. I
Oh,
mean,
wow. I'm not here to have that debate, though. That's too
yeah,
cliche. That's too cliche, man. I'm not here to have
I,
it. I'm not here to have it.
no, I don't think it's too cliche, but I just think like work ethic and look at talking about kind of like what how sports is going up against the odds against the Warriors, against all these like super teams the last like 4 years. It's really put a toll on him. But then again, he made the bed he lies
Mhm.
in.
Mhm.
So
100%. Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
he created this mess, and, now for himself, essentially. It worked a couple times. It didn't work
yeah,
a couple others, which is really interesting. But,
it
enough
is.
about LeBron, man. I don't need to talk too much more about him. I wanna talk
Of
about you, Brian. So,
course.
I saw, that you were in the Marine Corps recruiting for a little while, like a few years. So talk to me a little bit about that. I guess where did that background come from? I guess why did you kinda take that path?
Got it. So not Marine Corps recruiting. I was actually in the Marine Corps Reserves.
Okay, I
And
apologize.
no, you're good. That on my LinkedIn profile, it does say recruiting, but it doesn't have a thing there for
Mhm.
the Marine Corps
Okay.
itself. But during the time I joined back in 2013, I was actually going in because I wanted to be in law enforcement. I was 22 when I actually joined the Marine Corps, so I was a little bit older than coming right out
Mhm.
of high school. I had my career, my eye set on going into law enforcement, so I joined the Marines thinking, I'd come out and want to be a police officer. I worked at a detention facility, which was an immigration facility where we held people for a short period of time, as far as for immigration until they were actually transferred, depending on what their status was of this country. And during the time, I really loved it because I thought, it's something I really wanted to do, make a difference in people's lives in a positive way, and serve America. That's always
Mhm.
like what I set out to join the Marines for. And during that time, it's like, I just felt kind of like I saw a lot of negativity in it. And I think it kind of wore on me. I've always uh, put forth a positive mindset. And I saw that kind of wearing. So I wanted to get out of there. And, I did. I only worked there for about a year and a half.
Mhm.
And during halfway through my career with the Marine Corps Reserves, it was probably year 4 where I just kind of to want to go into entrepreneurship. And that's when I went into personal training.
Really? That's interesting. I guess like what I mean, I'm a very positive person, I like to think. And yes, if you're showered with negativity all day, that's gonna obviously wear down on you, as you say, and kind of burn you out. Was
Right.
that knowing that that was in the Marine Corps? Was that also? Did you just kind of make the assumption that that's kind of what law enforcement would look and feel like? I'm assuming moving forward.
No, I worked with a lot of people in law enforcement actually in the Marine Corps Reserves. A lot of them were, working 5 days, 6 days a week, and then going in the Marines
Mhm.
on their weekends and doing that. And man, it's a tremendously hard job. I think being a police officer is the hardest job in America. It's a lot of, you hear a lot of criticism, especially what's going on now.
Yeah,
And it's tough, because there are a lot of good police officers out there.
of
Just like
course.
in every job, there's bad apples too. So it definitely it does wear. But I saw just the lifestyle that they lived, and like I said, I give them tremendous respect. I just didn't want that for myself anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, my uncle, is a cop. I think he might have just retired, like, last year, but pretty much my entire life he was, and, yeah, it was always really interesting. Granted, he was a cop in, like, a really easy, place here in New Jersey in the suburbs, so it was always kinda funny,
Right.
but, yeah, it was always, he's on 7 to 7, he misses this holiday, so he gets that holiday, and it was just very, like, and he just spends time with kids, right? But it worked for him, he's happy, that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, it does work for some people. And I take my hat off to them. I just wanted more freedom.
Mhm.
Like, I believe that we only have so many years in our life, and I don't want to spend my 20s, 30s, and 40s, always being on call, wondering when I'm
Mhm.
able to take my vacation. And
Yeah.
I'd rather do that on my own time.
I get that, and then so that kind of threw you in another direction, as you said, kind of chase that entrepreneurial lifestyle a little bit, where you can, obviously you can, but it's a hindrance if you just want to take that
Yeah.
vacation, then you're not going to make any money that week, most likely. So where along the line was personal training? Like where in your story did that start? Were you always into it, starting in high school? Was it something you got into in college, or was it from the Marine Corps?
I was always going back to football. I didn't really play too much football in high school, but I did practice for the summer
Hmm.
of my sophomore year, and that was when I actually grew about 5 inches, and I was working out a
Oh,
lot.
oh,
And
wow.
I must have gained like 30 pounds that summer. I came back my sophomore year, and everyone was like, "Whoa, did you take steroids?" Like, so it kind of transformed me. I went from this 5 foot kid to this 5'6", and then just grew like that over the summer. And so working out's always kind of been a thing of me. Like I use running. I'm a big runner actually. I love coaching it. I love doing it myself. And I think from that point on, in about 2015, this is during my time when I was trying to discover, what's a little bit more, what's out else is out there for me. I read this book called The Miracle Morning. It's a book by Hal
Hmm.
Elrod,
Yep.
and I'm a big Hal Elrod fan. Me and him are actually good friends. I went to his
No way.
yeah, we hung out last year at his COO's wedding, and really nice guy. He is everything he preaches, and you gotta love that in somebody. Admire his work, and say I'm good friends with him. But his book had changed my life at that time because it kind of launched me into another style of thinking. And from there, like I was like, okay, what else do I want? I know I'm good at fitness, so let me go get my personal training certification. I did that. I was coaching the outside boot camp classes at first. I got my personal training certifications, and then I started taking on more clients that way. And then now, so this is about 3, 4 years ago, and now it's going the last year. I've been having my own clientele, and now with COVID,
Hmm.
it's been a big transition as far as like how else do I want the next 2 years to look as I'm going to school. So now everyone's mostly virtual. I have a few in-person clients where
Hmm.
we train very carefully, but like most of it's all virtual.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of it's been a trend. I actually recently had on two gentlemen, Colin and Ryan, from a company called Athleticus, that is really trying to help with personal trainers and the virtual aspect, where you actually it's attached to your wristwatch, with all the vitals and everything, and it's really interesting what they're doing. So anybody that's listening, make sure to go back and check it out. That one's really good. But in terms of, I guess, the personal training and now moving to that virtual aspect of it, how much harder, or has it made it easier, has this been, especially, I mean, considering we haven't really been able to see each other the last few months, that's one thing, but has
Right.
this been something that you can see just kind of taking a hold and moving forward with, whether we can or cannot see each other on a daily basis?
I think it's going to be a trend as far as online training. I really think it's here to stay. People have been doing it for years. I know other
Hmm.
personal trainers have been doing online personal training for years from a distance for other entrepreneurs and business people because they're always on the go.
Hmm.
So now I think, it's definitely tapped into a bigger market now, as opposed to like some of my clients have said they just don't want to go back to the gym because they have already bought all their weights, they have the setup, and they just rather do it virtually because it works for them. Other people, they're like, I can't wait to go back to the gym, which I understand. For myself, I don't want to go back to the gym. I mean, if I don't have to, I mean, I will. If it just really depends on what the outlook is like,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
and the flexibility for sure.
of course.
But yeah, I think it is here to stay for the long run, man.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, Peloton and all those other companies that do that kind of stuff. They made all their stuff free for like the first month because we only thought this was going to last a month. Joke's on us.
Right.
We're 6 months into this thing now. And then, obviously we've seen a lot of people as yourself and personal trainers get into the online space, but then we've also seen companies like Mirror, which is really interesting.
Yeah, another
That,
good
that one's
company.
kind of cool. I think that's the one Lululemon just bought. And I think there's even another one that's popping up that's just, here to, I think, stay, as you said. I mean, people can do something convenient to their own home and still have it tailored to who they are. I think that's
Right.
exactly what we're looking for, especially us, the M words, the millennials.
Right. No, and I agree. You mentioned Peloton yesterday. They had announced that they're coming out with 3 different versions of their Peloton bikes. Some that are much more affordable, and then they're coming out with the advanced version. Their
Mhm,
stock jumped up about 20% yesterday. I think even more, about 20%. Coming out with that kind of news because they know the market. They see that there is
mhm.
a need, and they're going after that market. So I think it's definitely here to stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the funny part about the Peloton is you can buy like an exercise bike for like $45 online and
Mhm.
an iPad, and you can pretty much just get everything you need from there. But I won't tell anybody that secret
I
if you
agree.
won't. How's that sound?
I
But hey, man, it's a brand. People love brands, and Peloton's done something right. I mean, I use Peloton literally every day. We just have the digital version of it, and I do the
right.
meditation, the yoga, and stuff, and we're good. I don't have to have a $2,000 bike to do that, so I'm
Yeah,
pretty okay with
agree.
it. But I won't tell anybody if you won't. So that's really interesting with the personal training side. So I'm kind of curious, where along the way did you decide that, hey, this entrepreneurial lifestyle, while it's working, it seems like, you have a significant, you have enough clients to seems like that you can pay your bills and you're good to go there. And I'm assuming you can then continue to scale because it is virtual, maybe group classes, maybe just fill up more of your day, however it goes. Why did you want to get into sports broadcasting? What was it? Especially you this late in your career, this late in your life. I mean, it's funny, right? You're not even 30, so we're saying this
Yeah.
late in your life, but usually this is something people make that decision at 18, go to college for it, and then by 22, they're hitting the ground. Whereas now you're a few years removed from even 22 to get to where you're trying to get to.
So I mean, it goes back to last year. I was, coming around the holidays, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do another year of just doing personal training.
Mhm.
I was like, how else do I advance? I mean, I could get more clients, I can make more money, but then I have less time.
Yeah.
So, there's certainly a time factor. And then so this was, I've always thought about the Dan Patrick School of Broadcasting at Full
Mhm.
Sail University. It's heavily advertised on Facebook. Dan Patrick Show heavily advertises it, and they always talk about the amount of in-person skills that I went to it, like Dan Patrick, Stuart Scott, other people that have contributed to this program. And so I was just sold on it. Like the money was definitely I've never made that large purchase because it is a
Mhm.
purchase
Yep.
of, spending
It's an
60
investment.
grand. Yeah. Spending $60,000, over a 2.5 year span is a lot of money. So I thought about that and I'm like, okay, well, I got to really kick my butt into gear. So I started school back on January 6th, and it's been perfect actually during COVID because I'm all online. It's I was never going in person. The school's in Florida. I'm still staying in Los Angeles. That was another thing that contributed to it. Was I'm in LA. I could find a job in sports in Los Angeles as
Mhm.
far as an intern if I wanted to. I could find sports people to be on my podcast. So that's how I'm looking at it. What other strengths can I do as far as like, okay, I don't have to move all the way to Florida. I can stay here. I can stay put. I can still make the life that I'm living right now work.
Mhm. And I guess with that, I get, what was it though that wanted to get you into sports broadcasting? I know you said it was advertised to you, and it's advertised to me all the time too. But I'm just kind
Right.
of curious, like, where is it a specific announcer? Is it Gary, Keith, and Ron? Because honestly, they almost did it for me as well. Because I love those guys. Howie Rose, is it him? Like, what is it that wanted to get you into potentially a new career path?
No, it was actually someone like Dan Patrick and Bill Simmons, a big admirer of their work, especially what Bill Simmons has done. As far as like I've followed him when he left ESPN, I think
Hmm.
it was like late 2014, early 2015. He went and started the Ringer Network. People were wondering like, hey, what's going on with Bill Simmons? His podcast is not going. And then I, find out the news that he's coming out with his own HBO show any given Wednesday. But then that was a flunk. But anyways, he started the
Hey.
the Ringer Podcast Network, which, man, proven story. He leaves this big conglomerate in ESPN, go start his own podcast network in the Ringer. And then right at the beginning of COVID, sells the Ringer for, I know it's a disclosed price, but I think it's up north of $100 million to
Hmm.
the Spotify. And you just take that kind of news and you're just like, man, like, this guy did it and he's in sports and he's still
Hmm.
able to do what he loves.
Hmm.
So I think, there's definitely ways out there to do it. But Bill Simmons was a bit, even before he sold Spotify, I was already like sold on going back to school. But I wanted to go work for the Ringer. The Ringer is
Hmm.
still something I do want to work for one day if if the timing makes sense, or, with my podcast and, and my vision, how that might come about.
I
I
love it.
still have I still have about 2 years left in school, but there's still a long road ahead.
You got a while, and it's a grind, man, and we're gonna do it together. I promise you that, because I'm right there with you, man. I don't want to work for
Take
the
care,
Ringer.
brother.
I honestly am not the biggest Bill Simmons fan. He's a little too whiny
That's
for me, and I hate Boston. So,
yeah.
Boston, the city is actually cool. I guess it's the sports fans that's that it gets on my nerves a little bit. I'm a Boston Red Sox fan up until the Yankees are eliminated from the playoffs, and then at that point, I then go root against Boston because then there's the Yankees now. You could tell any Red Sox fan that they'll disagree. but it's essentially the same thing at this point.
Right now, yeah, I totally understand that. What made you start this podcast, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I just love talking to people, man.
Yeah,
So I actually
agreed.
have another podcast where I speak with Olympic athletes on their story and path of the games. It's called Our Athletes. And I've
Nice.
probably interviewed over 120 to 150 Olympic athletes over there. And I realized I love talking to Olympic athletes and I can continue to do that, but I wanted another outlet to be able to just talk to other people in sports, right? There's so many different
Right.
people in sports. There's so many different opportunities. And it's very frustrating to hear people when they're just like, oh, like I don't want to sell tickets. It's like, all right, well, sports is an industry, man. Like you can do finance, you
Mm,
can do accounting, you can do sales, you can do marketing, you could literally do anything, operations,
right.
HR, you could do all of this within the scope and the lens of the sports business industry. So I started this one in January and really took advantage, for lack of a better term, of the quarantine. And I am up to, I think you're episode 198. So
Nice,
since
man.
January, we've done 198 interviews. And then I think there's probably another 10 to 12 just kind of one-off episodes of either breaking down the NFL draft or breaking down, the English Premier League coming back with some of my friends. We just do it for fun. But
Right.
yeah, you're almost episode 200. Two more. I think they're already scheduled for this week. So we're going to hit. My goal for the year was to do 200 interviews. And through this show, my Olympic athlete show, and I work with my buddy Jason Mizrahi over at Win Daily, doing sports betting and fantasy sports. Probably did another 40 interviews through there. So we're well over that 200 number. So my new goal is 300. So I need another about 50 by the end of the year. I think I could do it. I'm pretty confident in myself.
Nice, man. I think you will do it. You're already well way there. And you mentioned Jason Mizrahi. Does he by chance work on the Jordan Harbinger show?
No,
That's another podcast.
no,
Was curious.
different guy. Different guy.
Different.
He owns Windale. It's a different media company. Pretty cool. Do sports, fantasy sports, and sports betting, which is a lot of fun. It's a fun up and coming industry. So excited, enjoy being part of that team over there.
I see.
Yeah. But this one over here has been a lot of fun. This has also allowed me the opportunity to interview a lot of high profile people because I also decided to write a book, which will be published in December on the sports business industry. It's called Winning in Sports Business. I think that's the title. We might change that still, but Winning in Sports Business, how to get a job essentially in the sports industry. Got to interview a lot of cool people from all these different fields, from the medical field to sports agents, to media company owners, to content creators. It's been an absolute blast. Very excited for that to get out. So there's my little shameless plug there as well.
Nice, man. That's awesome.
I guess it's my show. I can shamelessly plug something. But to talk a little bit more about you, again, you keep running me off topic, man. I appreciate the questions, but I'm supposed to be asking you the questions, man.
Man,
I'll
it's a
come on your
conversation.
show and we'll talk to me some other time. But
It's a conversation.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. With Full Sail specifically, like what? So you've been there. It sounds like you said it was about 2.5-year program, and you have about 2 years left. So I'm assuming you've been there for about 6 months. What has this first 6-ish months looked like, especially during quarantine, everything being virtual? As you said, you were going to stay virtual anyway. What has it been like, and what have you learned so far? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, so I started the school back in January. Every month is a new class. So you have 4 weeks. It's a new class every time, and it goes fast, man. It's a lot. You got to keep up. For the most part, throughout it all, we've had intro into broadcast writing, intro into sportscasting. This last class was personal brand, all Adobe. We had a class on all Adobe setups, and now I'm into intro into sports marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And my graduation date will be 2022. It's a 29-month program in general, and it goes fast. Honestly, man, it's like now I'm going on month 9. I'm on my second week of classes, and every time it flies by really quick. Before I know it, it's gonna be this time next year. I'm like, wow, I have less than a year to graduate. I've almost made the decision a year ago. It'll be a year ago next month. I actually made the decision to go back to school and signed up and all that. So even that's come fast. But like the school, man, they do a great job. Like most of my instructors have worked at ESPN in different fields, maybe producers and stuff like that. But they've all worked for ESPN or CBS Sports. So, you're learning directly from the people that have done it. And that is the tremendous part about it. I look at this more as an investment in myself. I know sometimes like I was never one to pay for like college, because sometimes like, I think about it like, why would I want to go to school for that when I don't need to? But for this kind of training, what I knew I was going to get out of it, it was kind of a no-brainer when I
Mhm.
made the decision. I
I
mean, it
love
was
it.
definitely scary, but yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean that's a lump sum, man. That's a down payment on a house. Maybe not
yeah.
in LA, but like it's a down payment on a house in most places around the country. And I mean that's like that's a huge commitment. And you know, obviously, if you see that as something that makes sense, I mean, shoot, man, shoot, go for it. You only get to do this thing once. You might as well do something you love, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you mentioned, it's funny you mentioned down payment on a house. I'm actually looking at that to make a down payment on a duplex
Congratulations.
property. Yeah.
Very nice.
So
Oh,
sweet
cool. So you
flow.
put the down payment there. You make your tenant pay most of the mortgage, and you're good to go. I won't tell your
Pa-
tenant that they're paying most of the
Passive
mortgage, but
income. Yeah. I
passive
mean, they
income.
know it. Oh
Oh
man,
no,
it's
yeah,
the
they know
way to do it.
how renting works, man. That's pretty good, man. I respect that. And so with all of these classes, do you? I mean, so you went to college before this, right? This is kind of your second stint, right?
Right. Yeah. I went to college before
Okay.
for law for
Yeah.
my criminal
Yeah.
justice.
So with the differentiation, like the juxtaposition of doing, you know, 5 classes a semester and then probably taking 1 class or 2 classes over the summer, how does that compare to this month by month process that you're doing here? I'm kind of curious your thoughts, especially someone that's gone through both so far.
Well, so I think it's way harder to actually do what I'm doing now,
Mhm,
as far as like, because I'm working still pretty much full time. And I'm, trying to, look at trade my stocks and stay on sports and,
mhm,
stay engaged in school. And when I was just normally going to college, it's easy. You have school that starts in, either August or September, and then you have certain breaks off, you're, in between. And, doing it online, it's much harder, I think, because like if you miss a lecture, then you have to go back and rewatch
mhm,
it. And then, it's 4 weeks every month. It's like we don't get really a summer break. We don't get a winter break. It's jammed all in there, and you gotta be on it. You miss a class and the next month you gotta redo it.
mhm,
So it's hard. I mean, it's definitely I would much rather go to a regular college and do that, but this is an accelerated program. I knew I was getting myself into. That's why I dove in and did it, and I know the bigger picture of it. So like, some days like you lose sight of it, but it's mostly you always got to keep your eye on the prize.
mhm. Yep, 100%. You got to keep your eyes, you know, focused on where you're going, not on where you're at, because obviously you're going to continue to get better. And so with, you know, with the classes that you've taken and with some of the exercises and the experiences that you've already had, like have you seen your I'm assuming you felt yourself get significantly better over the last 9 months. I mean, that is then just going to continue to accelerate over the next 18 to 24, whatever that number is.
I mean, with what I've learned already in doing the podcast and stuff like that, my audio editing skills have been a lot
Mhm.
better as far as so that I'm much more confident talking in front of a camera. Right now, I'm making an online course for runners on how to
Cool.
run a 5K, and I'm going to be launching that course to sell it, and for to make another way of online, to have a digital marketing program in there, and kind of launch that to make some more passive income and to help other people on a larger scale. So I think like with all that, it's definitely helped me on my business and with the podcast.
Mhm. And so I've run a couple 5Ks. A friend of mine works for the New York City Marathon, and
Nice.
there's the day before the New York City Marathon, there's a 5K
Hmm.
where she's gotten me to. I've had the opportunity to run it. It's usually like the day before or after my birthday. It kind of just falls on like that same weekend. So we've
I
run it the
heard.
last couple years. And the first year I trained, I was like, all right, gonna get up and like, you know, slowly do this. The second year I trained a little bit less. And the third year I was just like, it's 3 miles. I'm just gonna run it. And it sucked, but I just ran it. It was my best time. So I don't know,
Right.
man. There's something about a 5K that doesn't intimidate me. It just
Right.
doesn't.
But it intimidates some others,
No, it should. It
people.
should. 3.5 miles is kind of far, right? It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, running 3.1, it's
3.1.
not easy for people, especially, for people that have never run. A lot of
Mhm.
people just hate running in general. So
I
like,
hate it.
yeah. And my goals for the course is to break that for some people. I know I'm not going to be able to break it for everybody, but if I could change a few people's lives while doing it, and kind of incorporate something else into it. It's coming up on the end of the year soon. New Year's resolutions are all going to be here, and I kind of want to have that course there ready for people who are looking to start running. Everyone has a fitness goal, so I kind of want to be there, be able to help people during that time with this course.
I love it, dude. That is awesome. Good for you. And yeah, hopefully you get a couple people to buy it. And send me the link when it's done. Maybe I'll buy it too. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So a couple last questions about the sports broadcasting school. I guess where, so you said you wanted to do this as a career. You wanted this to be your life.
Yeah.
You're also talking about, you're also an entrepreneur, meaning yes, if you're working, you're making money, but you have that opportunity to say, hey, I can't work this week, and nobody's going to say no, you can't. You can go on vacation, do whatever you'd like. How do you feel about, being in a sports industry that is essentially always on, right? Like the only time most sports broadcasters get off is during the middle of baseball season, and during the middle of baseball season this year, the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs came back. Like, it was really weird. Obviously, we had the,
Right.
the layoff because of COVID, but how do you feel about that aspect? Because that's always something that, especially new to the industry, people have to really deal with, because you're missing nights, you're missing weekends, you're missing family time, you're missing holiday, you're missing all that stuff. And that seems like it's pretty important to you.
Right. So I mean, like you said, we all are in control of what we want to do. And as far as like for the podcasting, I'm hoping that with the amount of experience that I get from a podcast, I will have that flexibility. And man, with sports, it's not a job. It's
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
awesome. It's a passion, man. And like I love talking sports, and everything like that. So if it comes to that, and I had to do that, it's not an issue for me. I love sports. I've always, even with whatever job I went to, I've always talked to people. We always had our debates, talking shit, whatever. Excuse my language, but it's like we always, there's always that camaraderie with sports. So I definitely will, always appreciate that and never take it for granted.
I respect the hell out of that, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
yeah,
So let's talk about your podcast a little bit. So it's called A Rocky Start. I'm assuming we can get it on Apple, Spotify, pretty much everywhere podcasts are
yep,
available.
yep, exactly. You get it anywhere there. I host it through Anchor, but yeah, it's on every platform out there. And Rocky Start, it was inspired from Rocky Balboa, itself. I was a big Rocky fan growing up. I watched with my dad all the time, growing up as a kid. And what better story to be inspired by? Someone like Rocky's story coming up, in Philadelphia, like as far as like, just never knew he could have a shot at a champion. But it's like I know sometimes they're like a little overblown, but it's like it always inspired me. The music, all that kind of stuff, had an inspiring story to it. So like on a Rocky Start, like I love talking to people because in general, I think everybody has a rocky start in their life, hence the name. We all are, we all have an underdog story in us, is pretty much like what I always start off with on the show. And, I think that's like just true to my own nature and just what I love to bring to the show.
I love that. That's great. And I knew there was going to be a place where I could disparage Philadelphia a little bit more, because I love that before the Eagles Super Bowl, they had a statue of a fictional character in their city. And that was like the most impressive thing.
Hey,
So
that don't hate on that character. That character has inspired a lot of people.
I know, man. I'm kidding. I actually think the Sylvester Stallone story is cooler than the Rocky story itself. I
Right.
think people kind of forget, like, him with the Rocky character. Like, he brought it to so many places. He was rejected over and over and over again because he said, "No, I have to play this character because this is me." And everyone's like, "Nah, man, you can't even talk." And jokes on them, because that's billions of
Yeah.
dollars later in in a franchise, and it's pretty impressive. But everyone kind of forgets that part of it. I think that one's even cooler.
And to even go back on that, the movie was filmed in the 70s,
Hmm.
during that time, and to have an incredible story like that, it's really one of the first movies of its kind. And then it continued all the way, it's still going with Creed.
Yep. Yep.
And so you got to love something like that, 40 years later. He's definitely had an interesting life story, especially that with that, and then going and directing Rambo too,
Mhm.
he's has a really amazing life, and I'm always inspired on. I definitely want to have him on the podcast. So if he's listening to the show, he's always welcome on my show.
I don't know if Sylvester Stallone's listening, but I'll tag him when I put this out. I'll let him know, hey, we'd love to have you. Would love it. Brian would love it if you could have him on a show that you've inspired heavily. I think that would be pretty cool.
Dude, yeah, that'd be a dream to have him on the show.
Let's do it. So with the show, so I love the name. I love where that comes from. What do you talk about? What are the types of, as you said, you like to talk to people that have kind of an underdog story, that have that Rocky mentality, but like how does this tie into sports in any way, shape, or form?
Because I think every even athlete, whoever likes sports or in general, have a rocky start in their life. How did they? So like I asked them, how do they like sports? What got you involved in that? pretty much kind of like what you had asked me in the beginning. And, we go into that and then we talk about, how they came up through the industry, whatever part of sports they're in. And then, we kind of just go into talking about teams, like who they like, what their, profession is all about. And then we go into what advice they have for other people, that's kind of what it gets to. And then later on down the line, I would like to change the show a little bit and then to make it like a sports documentary podcast. That's my main goal for the show. When I have athletes on, I want to make it a documentary series
Talk to
for
me more
them.
about that. What exactly do you mean?
So like, for instance, like we had LeBron James on the show, like, turn it into like if it's a 2-part episode, but pretty much interviewing him going all the way back
Mm-hmm.
to, going to where he is now, because again, we all have a story. Would love to get in depth and talk to him about that. What literally drove him in life? How does he still have that motivation, even though being one of the best players in the world? Just using him as an example, it's just like, that'd be like the pinnacle icon for it. But that's what I would love to do for this show.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, it's really-
there's another podcaster. His name is Jordan Harbinger. He does the same thing, but with entrepreneurs, and that's how I would love to replicate my sports show and
yeah.
something like that.
I think that's really cool, man. Yeah, hopefully you just start reaching out to some athletes, man. If you
Yeah,
haven't already.
I think it's it's gonna definitely take time, build those relationships. That's always one thing that I would always recommend. You if you always network and you always stay true to who you are, I think good things will follow. Hard work will always win in the long run and never cut corners.
Mm-hmm. Work hard and work smart, then you
Yes.
double everyone else up. So with that idea, I think that is really cool, and I think that then the podcast medium, while it is starting to get flooded, I still think it hasn't even hit close to what the bubble is, because there's so many. I mean, now it's weird because there's less commuting hours, right? So
Right.
that was one thing that a lot of industry experts were talking about in the beginning. Podcasts are losing ear time because people
Yep.
aren't in their cars, and the average American's commute is 45 minutes a day to and from work. So you got an hour and a half. That's why a lot of episodes are in a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour long. So with that, I mean, what have you done, or how do you try and differentiate your show to make sure that, with limited listening hours now, or with reduced limiting hours, listening hours, your show is going to be one of the ones that people say, you know what, no, I need to listen to this before I listen to anything else in my queue.
Man, just being consistent. I think if I constantly put out episodes and you put out great content and better myself as an interviewer and, having on quality guests and doing my homework, I think over that my show will improve. I'm only, a few episodes in, show's really new,
Mhm,
but, just being consistent with all that and over time, looking at it like a 5 to 10 year window, because that's what this looks like.
mhm.
You got to think about your podcast. Like if you want it to be the best, you got to stay consistent, always putting out episodes, such as you have done. Man, you've done a tremendous job doing that.
Thank you.
You know, we, some people I think with podcasting they get very impatient, like you mentioned earlier. Those stats are true. There has definitely been a drop off in listenership in the last since COVID had happened. I think that's all going to go back up. And people like there's a podcaster named Pat Flynn who's really been in on podcasting since 2006. He saw this whole podcast revolution in the last 6-7 years happen, and the study is there are even going to be more listeners in podcasting. That isn't already hard to believe. That you would think that there's already enough listeners, but even when I still talk to people, they're like, "Oh my God, do you have a podcast?" Oh yeah, I haven't really listened to podcasts. There's still a tremendous market out there
Mhm,
for people who have not listened to podcasts.
mhm. Yeah, and especially, I mean, I think, differentiating through the content, such as that sports documentary style, right? I
Right.
think that is really cool. Like the 30 for 30, the audio version, while it's weird. Sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't. I don't really know what the hell they're
Right.
doing over there, because I really love them. And then there's like, oh, it's like we have another one coming out in like 18 months. It's like, okay, I guess I'll wait 18 months for the next one. But it's that style, especially, right? Like so many documentaries, yes, it's nice to see, but there's definitely some you don't need to, right? Like there's a lot that you don't really need to see what's going on. You're kind of just there for the audio, and then the the interviews anyway. So I
Right.
do think that style is pretty cool. And I actually had Kevin Jones of Blue Wire Sports Podcast. I think it's Blue Wire something podcast, whatever. He's a super cool dude. He owns the media company where he's aggregating all these regional podcasts and what they're doing. And he has Greg Olson now on. He has like partnerships with Chevrolet, which is really cool. But one of the things that they did was they had a mini documentary series on Freddie Adu. He had like a
Oh,
major
cool. Yeah.
soccer, he had a major soccer influencer or writer or reporter. I apologize, don't remember the gentleman's name, but did like a whole like 6-part thing on Freddie Adu and like his time here in the MLS and how he was the next coming of like
Right.
who
Yeah.
David Beckham or whatever. Obviously that didn't quite turn out to be true, but it's still a really interesting story. So those types of things, I think, we're seeing it with Serial obviously is one of the big ones. They kind of come out with this. It's a very limited number of episodes, and while most I feel podcasts are interview or just kind of talk show based, there are the ones that are different where it is kind of that documentary style. There's, comic books that are read through podcasts, which is really
Right.
interesting too. And you kind of get that storytelling going on too. So a lot of stuff going on, man. I love it. Again, if I could do this every day, talk to cool people like you, share some of your wisdom, share some of your experience, help some other people around the world, get paid just enough money to pay my bills, I think I'd be the happiest person on planet Earth. So be kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely doing it in a smart way. It's like, the better your show gets, the more quality guests and the better quality of interviewing questions you ask, it's just better, the better your show's going to get. And you might get that sponsor or two out there because, even during COVID, people are still looking for, sponsors are still looking to get their stuff out there. So, I mean, there is definitely, things out there. You just got to go out there and find it. I mean, I think that's who, what COVID has really brought out with people. If you haven't really adapted, like right when COVID happened, I brought everybody online. I didn't miss a beat with work.
Mm-hmm.
I literally, I had to get creative. They're all my clients. I was like, look, we're going online. We're going to do this for a little bit. Let's try it out. If you don't like it, I'll give your sessions back, and all that. Not one person told me, this sucks or whatever. It's like they might have said it's different. It's an adjustment, of course, but they, have all stuck with me since then, and, they continuously are consistent. And I think that's the same with any industry. You have people who just complain. I hear a lot of people complain, oh, I can't find nothing. I can't find nothing. That may be true. And I know it's hard out there. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you are hungry enough, you will find something. Like you would definitely find something. This is not the first time in history where this has happened. It happened in 2008. People, had to learn again then. And if you can't find something out there, learn a new skill, learn a new trait. There are definitely lots of certifications, online tools out there where you can definitely apply yourself to them. And in the long run, it will benefit you for the future.
Exactly as you're doing, right? You decided you wanted something, so you made an investment in yourself, went back to school, and you're now only less than a year and a half away from graduating. And now you can put that on your resume. And you are in LA, so there's a lot of radio stations, a lot of television stations out there. You can find a couple people. Maybe keep doing this thing, man. We'll see what happens. I'm crossing my fingers for you.
Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I think we pretty much covered everything. Anything else, man? I think you did a great job. Oh,
Yeah, if you're
so you're in school. I actually do have one last question. You are in school. You are learning how to become a better interviewer. What can I do better? How can I be a better interviewer?
I think, just as you were doing, do your homework on your guests. Yeah, that's what I try to do. I, go through making sure that I try to know every, detail possible. I think that is the number one thing that you can do as a podcaster is to know your guest who's coming on the show. The only reason I say that is because I'm doing it from and learning it from the person that's been doing it the best in personal development and self-help. His name is Jordan Harbinger. He's the host of the Jordan Harbinger Show. But if you go listen to this podcast, he literally he's had on Kobe Bryant, all these other, from athletes to authors, entrepreneurs, people in law enforcement. It's just crazy the amount of different guests he gets on the show. It's because it comes from networking and he does his homework on his guests. And, I believe you take that kind of skill and you apply it to your show, that you'll end up being one of the top entrepreneurs or one of the top podcasters out there in your space.
So I need to do more homework on you. What did I not get on you? Now I'm kind of curious.
No,
What's
I
out
didn't.
there?
I'm not saying that
No,
you
I'm
asked
kidding,
me
man.
what
I'm kidding. I'm
you
kidding,
asked me
man. I'm
what you
just busting
said.
balls. Sorry,
No,
just trying to.
you're
I'm
good,
sorry, dude.
man.
But Brian, where can everybody find? Where can they find your podcast? Just one
You
more
fi-
time for the people.
No, you find you go download my podcast, A Rocky Start. You could go to Anchor, Spotify, I'm in Apple, iTunes. You can find me all across all the platforms, Stitcher, SoundCloud. I'm there. You can add me on Instagram at Bryan Argott or on LinkedIn as myself. And yeah, go find me there. And if you're out there, and you find it hard during COVID, stay consistent with yourself, and find something that you're good at, and just apply yourself to it.
I love
And
it, dude. Little inspiration at the end. Love it.
go Mets.
Go
Go
Mets.
yep.
Don't say
Go
go
Mets this
Eagles. Do
season.
not
Definitely
say go
go
Eagles.
Eagles over the
Do not
Giants.
say it.
You never mentioned who you were, were a fan
Giants.
of.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Giants.
assume Giants.
Yeah.
And you guys have a long road back.
Yes.
You guys aren't getting no more lucky Eli throws. I'll tell you that.
Hey, man. It's better to be lucky than good sometimes. It's better to
Yeah.
be lucky than good. But
When you have a super glue on your helmet, it's not yeah.
hey, man, what are you gonna do, right? I'm not gonna take
Yeah.
it away, but no, good stuff, man. I appreciate the little jabs at the end. That's always nice. But Bryan Argott, host of A Rocky Start, student in sports broadcasting at Dan Patrick School of Sports Broadcasting, I think, and
Yes, sir.
virtual personal trainer. Brian's going to send me all of those links that he was talking about. He's going to give me all of his social links, and I will make sure that gets out to the people. I appreciate your time today, Bryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so